Hello, peace and blessings, my good friends. I hope you're having a fantastic day. Welcome back to another practice. Today's practice is going to be in the style of Hatha yoga and Katonah yoga. So a little bit slower pace of a class, but still very strong. I promise we will bring that energy up and create a lot of strength and mobility in the body. We're going to get started in a seated position with some breaths. I often like to sit in virasana on my shins with a block under my seat so that I can kind of rise up out of the pelvis into a nice, tall sitting position. Choose where you're resting your palms. It could just be on your lap. Close your eyes if that feels comfortable for you to do so. And then take 5 deep breaths at your own pace. Don't rush to the finish line. See how much you can really sit in these 5 breaths. See how much depth you can create, how much volume you can create from the inside of the body. Two more breaths. A slow breath is really what I mean when I say deep breath, because a slow breath will create the volume. Not just on the inhale, but on the exhale. Notice how much you're releasing. We can start to feel how the body truly changes shapes just from something like an inhale and an exhale. When you finish those, go ahead and reach the arms up to the sky in a V shape. Make the palms into cups, cups that could catch water if some raindrops graciously fell from your ceiling or from the sky. Feel the wrapping of the armpits. So that's another reason why we make the cups with the hands, is because we can really feel the armpits wrapping in. All right. We'll do 50 Kapalabhati sharp exhales through the nose. Feel the belly kind of snapping back toward the spine as you shoot out the sharp exhale. And then right after each sharp exhale, let your body naturally take in a little bit of oxygen in. Right, so go ahead and inhale and 50 count sharp exhale. Keep going, stoke the fire a little bit, build the heat, out, 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 30 more. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Exhale all the way. Inhale all the way. Hook the thumbs one in front of the other overhead. 3 more sips through the mouth. 3 more sips through the mouth. Lick the lips. Swallow. Last sip through the nose. Hold for 3, 2, on 1. Pop your cork. Let the arms slowly return down into your lap. Feel the energy that just rose up the body through the crown of the head. Sit in stillness for another 3 breaths. And just feel the energy that you've cultivated to begin your practice. Maybe find a thought of gratitude. Blink the eyes open when you're ready to do so. If you are sitting on a block, go ahead and place the block out in front of you. It's the top of the mat. And then come into a table position onto all fours. As you come into a table position, feel your knuckles on the mat. So if you don't feel your knuckles on the mat, chances are your shoulders are going to be a little bit behind your wrists. To find your shoulders directly above the wrists, we have to come further forward than we think we should, until we find our knuckles nice and grounded. Okay? And then on your inhale, take a cow pose, stretch the abdomen. On the exhale, take a cat pose, stretch your back. And then keep going through cat-cow. Think that the movements start in the pelvis and then move through the spine, instead of starting in the spine and the pelvis following. Keep your knuckles on the ground. Imagine you could create 1 extra millimeter of space every time you shifted. All right, and then come back through center and flip the palms, one and then the other, fingertips face backwards. And you'll notice when I flip the palms, I didn't just turn my hand around, I pulled the whole hand off the ground, I rotated from the shoulder, from the collarbone, and then I placed the palm back down. All right, so this ensures we're not just twisting the arm, we're really rotating at the shoulder. And then begin to draw some circles with the shoulders over the wrists. You can let the hips kind of make a circle as well if you want. Go a few times clockwise, a few times counterclockwise. Feel your pelvis in control instead of your arms being in control. Think that every single thing we do today starts in the legs and involves the arms rather than starting in the arms and involving the legs. Good. From here, sit back onto your heels and have the toes tucked. I have to give extra effort to get that little pinky toe under. Usually I have to do it with my hands. Go ahead and bring the hands to heart center, interlace all of the fingers at the webbing. Flip and push the palms forward, tuck the tail a little bit and round the upper back. And then let it start from the pelvis, tipping forward to create a back bend as the arms go overhead. Let's inhale. Exhale, push forward and round. Inhale, back bend up. It starts in the pelvis, tilting. Exhale, push and round. Inhale, rise. Exhale, push and round. Inhale, rise. Exhale, push and round. Inhale, rise. Exhale, push and round. Pause, and then go ahead and bring the palms to the ground in this interlaced at the webbing position. Okay. Once you do so, begin to shift the weight a little bit. Go a little bit slower than you have. Again, what I like to do is draw circles with the pelvis, and then that naturally creates a little circle with the shoulders. Again, feel your knuckles on the ground. You don't have to press into the ground too hard or anything, but we are looking for the palms to be as flat and grounded as possible. Feel your body working as one organism rather than just individual parts to a whole. All right, and then you could stay here. Actually, come with me on this one. We have one more step in between. So we'll take the palms, keep them in this interlaced position. Just flip them forward once so that the backs of your hands press down. And then bend and straighten your elbows a little bit. Rock the weight around. Be very mindful of the weight you're putting into your hands. So I like to do a shorter position. So this is less of a tabletop and more of a seat so that I can kind of control how much I'm putting into the hands and into the wrists. All right, and then this one is the one that, kind of take it or leave it, but I recommend trying it. It can feel a little bit intense, but I promise if you practice it, it'll start to feel normal. You're going to take the palms, keep them interlaced to the webbing, flip them forward again, and then you'll get them to the ground. And then from here, you can crawl the knees forward, and if you want, you can even plug your palms down by crawling your knees onto your hands. And I know that can feel alarming, but it's one of those things that, for me, as I've practiced it more, it's actually become potentially the most therapeutic piece of my practice is right here. Opens at the collarbones, opens at the wrists, makes the lungs available for the practice that is ahead of us. Right. So at any point you can come out if this is something that you're just starting to build some tolerance to. But we'll take a few more breaths. This really just calms my nervous system down, which is funny because the first time I did this, it really just activated my nervous system up, right? But it's funny how things can change based on the techniques that we learn and based on the activities that we spend our time doing. If your knees are on your hands, for the one person that's still with me, go ahead and release them. All right, and then unwind the hands the same way that they kind of came through. So roll them backwards and plant the palms on the ground. Take a moment just to feel your hands in their original position. Give yourself another breath or two. And we'll come into down dog. We're not holding the down dog, though. The down dog is just going to transition us to a fold in the middle of the mat. So a standing hang at the middle of the mat. Bring space between your feet. If you'd like to measure, you can use 2 fists width. Bring the weight forward toward your toe mounds rather than back in the heels. And then grab your elbows. Let the palms cup right over the pointy tips of the elbows. Bend your knees enough so that the upper body makes contact with the lower body. And then let yourself breathe here. Option to rock side to side. But again, the rocking side to side, it's less of the upper body rocking. I think it's more of like you shifting weight a little bit left foot to right foot. And that kind of creates a sway in the pelvis, which creates a sway in the upper body. It starts in the legs and then ripples throughout. Try to find this energy of just letting the upper body hang down. Let the upper body be heavy. Bobblehead the head around a few times so that you're not holding as much tension in the neck. Keep shifting the weight forward toward the toes. That'll really let yourself hang down. Keep bending the knees to take the pressure out of the low back. Let the legs handle that pressure because they're built to. And then from here, palms to the ground. Step back to plank pose. Crawl forward with the hands if you need to. Find the shoulders over the wrists, so feel your knuckles on the ground. And then lift the hips back to downward facing dog. As we get to our downward facing dog, bend the knees so that you can stick your butt up all the way toward the sky. Find your ears in line with your upper arms. And then on your next inhale, take a crouching down dog. So deep bend into the knees, look slightly forward like your hips and your head are on a spit with each other. And then exhale, butt to the sky for down dog. Inhale, crouching dog. Exhale, full down dog. Inhale, crouching dog. Exhale, full down dog, hips to the sky. Inhale, crouching dog, last one. Exhale, butt to the sky, down dog. From here, take a deep bend into both knees to prepare. And then lunge the right foot up to the top of the mat. Drop the left knee down, flatten the top of the left foot to point back behind you. Let's go ahead and crawl the fingertips forward. So right hand kind of crawls out at 2 o'clock, left hand is at 10 o'clock. If you can, go ahead and fit your right knee into the right armpit. And then from here, begin to shift forward and back like a low lunge to half splits. And then go ahead and start moving it in a circle. So move your hips in a clockwise circle. Instead of just going forward and back in a linear fashion, go around in a more circular fashion. Draw clockwise circles with the hips. Work with the container you got. So these could be small circles, these could be big circles. You could go slow, you could go fast. But try to find the edges of the circle. Try to expand your circumference and be light in the hands. So arms can do whatever you want here. Totally cool to keep hands on the ground, but try to be on your fingertips. And then pull the hips back, half splits. Keep a bend in the knees so that upper body can be connected with lower body. Crawl the fingertips out in front of your foot. If you're looking underneath you, look slightly out in front of you. Nice. Rebend into your right knee. Prepare to lunge forward. So go ahead and grab your elbows and then rise up into a lunge. From here, interlace fingers at the webbing. Cup the palms behind the head, elbows point up to the sky. Push your left foot down, down, down into the ground. Rise up and out, up and away. And then lift and lower the torso a few times. Fold and unfold. The legs don't move. This is coming from the pelvis. So what I like to imagine is that from the hips down, and go several more times. What I like to think of is that from the hips down is like a flower bed or the surface of a garden. And everything from the hips lower is like roots growing down into the soil. And then everything from the hips up is like the stem of a plant. So it's like we're kind of like a plant blowing in the wind. And the hips down are underground. And from the hips, or anything above the hips is above ground. So we get to find that freedom from the wind. All right, go ahead and bring fingertips down to the mat. Tuck the left toes under. Lift the left knee up off of the mat. Left fingertips to the ground. Right hand twists up to the sky. If you want, you could even reach your left fingertips over to the outside of your right foot. And then if you feel the crown of the head moving to the right toward 2 o'clock, bring it back to 12 o'clock so the top of the head reaches right out in front of you. Try to lift the hips up a little bit. Release. Palms to the ground. Downward facing dog. And then just as we did before, inhale, crouching dog. Exhale, lift your butt to the sky. Inhale, crouching dog. Exhale, lift your butt to the sky. Inhale, crouching dog. Exhale, lift your butt to the sky. Inhale, crouching dog. Exhale, lift your butt to the sky. Inhale, crouching dog. This time, lunge the left foot up to the top of the mat. We'll start by just crawling the fingertips forward. Left hand reaches out at 10 o'clock, right hand at 2 o'clock. Left knee can fit into the left armpit if that feels available. We'll begin to shift forward and back, kind of like low lunge to half splits, and just go forward and back maybe 2 or 3 times, and then begin to move in a circle. So move in a counterclockwise circle this time, because I think we moved clockwise last time. But really, you could go in either direction, and the journey remains circular, is what's important. Feel the space opening up and be patient with yourself. Sometimes I think it's tempting early in a practice to just want to go really deep into the stretches, but it can be very rewarding when we save that for later in the practice. We can leave ourselves more space for an experience when the time is right. It's almost like delaying gratification until our body is really ready to go deep, and then we notice we might even have more. Go ahead and pull the hips back and take a moment to pause in Ardha Hanuman in half splits. And then come forward, grab your elbows, and then rise into a lunge. And then once you feel stable in the lunge, interlace fingers to the webbing, get the opposite hand on top. Throw the head gently into the center of the palms. Elbows up to the sky. Take a few breaths. And then fold and unfold several times. Again, bring back the analogy that took me forever to explain on the last round. Starting at the hips and including anything underneath is underground, solid, growing roots. And anything above the hips is the stem, the branches. Letting it move in the wind a little bit. All right, then bring fingertips back down. Tuck the back toes under, lift the knee, lift the hips. Right fingertips down, left fingertips twist. Option to reach across your left foot. Keep pulling your left buttock bone up and back. Whew. If you lose balance, that's okay. That's what can happen when we revolve. Just try to keep yourself in the center. And then release, palms down. Step back to downward facing dog. All right, from down dog, really feel yourself driving through the armpits, lengthening through the armpits all the way up through the hips. Then take a deep bend into the knees. Down dog, butt to the sky. Inhale, deep bend into the knees. Plank pose on the exhale. Shift forward and find your knuckles. Inhale, crouching dog. Exhale, dog. Inhale, crouching dog. Plank pose on the exhale. Inhale, crouching dog. Exhale, dog. Find a flow. Inhale, crouch. Plank on the exhale. Inhale, crouch. Dog on the exhale. Inhale, crouch. Plank on the exhale. Inhale, crouch. Exhale, dog on the exhale. Inhale, crouch. Exhale, plank on the exhale. Inhale, crouch. Exhale, dog on the exhale. This time, inhale, crouch, and then go ahead and lunge the right foot to the top of the mat. Drop the left knee down. Flip the top of the left foot down. Interlace palms behind head, and rise up. In fact, actually, if you have a block this time, if you don't have a block, no worries. You're already in it. You don't need a block. But if you do have a block, what can be really nice, what I love doing in my personal practice is take a block at an angle, press it against your thigh, use that to kind of find a container, an extra scaffolding for the lunge, and then rise up. You might be able to find more sensation or more experience or more opening in the upper body once you've kind of scaffolded the lower body. And give yourself a few breaths. And then stay here, just release the palms, interlace the fingers behind the low back, pull the knuckles down and find a different shoulder stretch. We're not here for long. I know we've already been in this lunge for a while. So go ahead and release. Place the block out to the side and then pull back to a half splits. Right hip pulls up and back. Find the hinge. Feel the groundedness in this pose. Then come forward. Bring the right foot a little bit wider and point the right toes a little bit more out toward 12 o'clock. Left fingertips on the ground, right hand to right knee. And then kind of just use that connection to start to lean into a small back bend. So just a little bit of opening here in the front body. And then from here, bend your left knee. Hug the heel in toward the glute without totally collapsing the hips down toward the ground. And then twist back, and maybe you find a connection there. Breathe into the twist, into the opening. Find a gentle push of your left foot into your right hand. And then see how gently you can release the foot out of your hand. Bring the palms down to the ground. Let's meet in downward facing dog. And notice the difference between your right and your left. Inhale, crouching dog. Plank on the exhale. Let it start in the legs. Inhale, crouching dog. Exhale, hips to the sky. Inhale, crouching dog. Plank on the exhale. Inhale, crouching dog. Hips to the sky. One more. Inhale, crouching dog. Plank on the exhale. Inhale, crouching dog. Hips to the sky. Inhale, crouching dog. Lunge the left foot forward to the top of the mat. Drop the right knee down, set yourself up. Rise into a lunge, and if you liked using the block on the other side, feel free to grab it again on this side. Again, if you don't have blocks, then they're not necessary. It's just like a little assist. For me, it actually helps me feel more. So it's definitely not like a handicap or something that you need to do if you're too weak or something. I really love doing this in my practice, and it almost lets me feel even more. It gives me a new experience in a pose that I've done a million times, which is really beautiful to have a new experience in something that you are experienced in. Go ahead and release the arms from overhead and bind the fingertips behind your back and pull the knuckles down a little bit. Release the hands down. Release the block, fingertips to the ground. Pull the hips back and find your half splits. Keep your knee bent a little bit so that you can hinge further and crawl further forward. The knee should almost never be locked out. There should almost always be at least a micro bend. It might not be visible to somebody else, but you can feel it. Because a little bend, even just a 1 degree bend in a joint, allows the currency to flow through. But when we completely straighten something out, sometimes the currency can be restricted. Begin to shift forward. Bring your left foot a little bit wider and turn your left toes out toward 10 o'clock. Just bring your left hand to kind of cup over your left kneecap and find a little bit of opening. The right fingertips are down to help us, but we're light in the right hand, so theoretically we should be able to lift the right hand at any point, but it's a nice boundary to have. And then bend into your right knee. Reach back. Find the bind. Once you feel comfortable here, start to gently push right foot into your left hand. Release the grip that you have. Start to close things off. Bring the left hand down to the ground and step back into your downward facing dog. From downward facing dog, go ahead and drop the knees for a second. Get off the hands. If you want to roll the wrists a couple times, you can roll the wrists. If you want to roll the shoulders, you can do so. If you want to grab a sip of water, it's a nice time for that. All right, so next, if you have 2 blocks, we'll set them up like so. I realized I needed a sip of water too. So you don't need blocks for this. Again, totally fine. You can just imagine the blocks. Or if you even have like, I don't know, maybe a couple, 2 toilet paper rolls or like, I don't know, something that could replicate blocks, you could always get creative. Place these blocks side by side in just about the middle of your mat. And then crawl forward into a plank over top of the blocks. And then lift to down dog. All right, so in your down dog, your kind of like your third eye, your forehead should kind of meet the corners of the blocks. If the blocks are way behind you, then you might need to move them up a little bit. And then from here, shift all the way out into a plank and then to an up dog. And let the tops of your thighs, or your pelvis, that's fine too. I just like the tops of my thighs. Let the tops of the thighs hit the blocks, and then let yourself kind of grow out from that. The key here is to be so strong in the legs. So you should be really engaging your thigh muscles and driving your heels back in space. The blocks are a boundary because most of the time without the blocks, even if you're an experienced practitioner like myself, we might find the hips dipping too low. So again, these aren't just like a beginner prop setup. I use these props all the time in my practice, and I've been doing this a long time. All right, then go ahead and come back to down dog, bend the knees, hips up, third eye to the block. And then go several times between down dog and up dog, utilizing the boundary of the blocks under the pelvis or under the thighs. And each time your thighs hit the blocks in the up dog, use that as a reminder to just engage the legs even more. And again, you can do this without the blocks, but you're imagining the blocks underneath your hips as an imaginary boundary to not dip the hips too low in your up dog. Because when we dip in the hips, what we're really doing is dipping into our low back. We want to keep it longer and stronger than that. We want a straight line from heels to hips and we don't want the legs to be going downward. Go 3 more times. Let this kind of build your heat a little bit as we increase the pace. All right, and then next time you land in down dog, go ahead and drop the knees down, take a break, and place your blocks to the side if you were using them. Okay, come back to down dog. And then from down dog, take a bend into the knees so that you can lunge the right foot up to the top of the mat. Drop the left knee down. Last time in this, take a lunge. Take a lunge. Feel the space in the hips. This should hopefully feel more free than your first lunge and your second lunge. And then let's try something. So from here, bend your left knee and reach back for a bind. You might need to shorten out the lunge a little bit. You might not get there today. What's important is that you're not directly on the left kneecap. So you find the angle where your lower thigh can be on the mat instead of just the tip of your kneecap. And see how gently you can release. Bring the fingertips down. Pyramid pose, Parsvottanasana. Stay high onto the back toes behind you. Keep a little bend in the knee, and then just like half splits, crawl the fingertips long. Theoretically, you could lift the hands at any point, but again, that boundary is nice to have. Keep rooting into your breath. And then move into hanumanasana, full splits. This is what blocks can be helpful for. But again, your full splits is really just anything in between half and full splits. So if you look at for me, for example, I'm never going to get my hips down to the ground. Literally never. But what my full splits is just a longer half splits. Right? It's the space in between. I usually use a block on the tall setting or sometimes the medium setting under my hips. And right, that kind of gives me my ground of being that I can rise up from. So the arms are your choice. It's always a nice option to grab your elbows. Keep bending your right knee so that you can kind of pull the right hip up and back, squaring the pelvis forward. Give yourself a few moments to be in the pose, to really embody the hanumanasana, imagining that you're jumping from one mountain peak to another mountain peak. The left foot is where you were. It's the mountain you have climbed during your life up to this point. The right foot is another mountain peak. It represents the future, where we're going. And then we find ourselves right in between the two as we traverse space and time, moving from the past into the future with every inhale and exhale. Release. And when I say release, let it take a few breaths, because for many of us, this is very deep space. And so if it's very deep space, we should respect it enough to slowly come out of it rather than rushing. Okay? Blocks to the side, if you use them, and then come back into downward facing dog. And then without the blocks this time, go 3 times, down dog to up dog. Still imagining the barrier of the blocks even without them being there. All right, from here, take a bend into the knees so that you can lunge the left foot up to the top of the mat. Drop the right knee down and then rise up into your lunge. Last time here in this particular lunge for the day. We'll move into this bind variation. Again, if you want to shorten your lunge by a couple steps, you can. Bend into your right knee, hug the heel in towards the glute, and then let yourself find a moderate back bend to reach back into it. So really feel the shoulder blades on the back body. And as the back body contracts, the front body opens. So since the shoulder blades are really on the back, the collarbones get really wide. Gently release your foot if you have it and move into hanumanasana, full splits. Once again, you can grab elbows, but always try to get the opposite arm on top. It's nice to just braid ourselves both ways, if you will, so that eventually we don't have a good side or a bad side. We just have 2, I suppose, good sides. Wouldn't that be nice, right? Go ahead and come on out of it. I usually like to just slide my left foot back and then just let my hips kind of massage themselves forward and back a little bit. And then once I gain that control back into where I am. We return to down dog. From down dog, take 3 transitions from down dog to tuck-toed up dog, remembering to let it start in the legs and remaining to be super strong in the thighs, in the heels. And really, it should start in the heels. So on the down dog, the heels press down, and then the heels lift up and take us all the way to the up dog. Then go ahead and step the right foot up to the top of the mat. We're just going to do the 2 poses this time. So first, we're going to come right into this lunge where we're reaching back for the bind. All right, so one more round with this lunge and with full splits, and then we're done with that stuff. All right, I know this stuff can be challenging, especially if you feel like your mobility is limited today for whatever reason. All right, maybe this feels really good. If we find ourselves in the middle of our circumstances, right? And sometimes those circumstances are easier or harder than they are one day or the other. But we find ourselves there, so what are we going to do about it? We're just going to do our best. And then be unattached from the results. From here, we go into splits. Take your time with the transition. I also want to let you know if this stuff is very hard for you, then even more props to you, for doing this practice. And whenever we do things that are hard for us, the more we do them, the easier it becomes. Because familiarity leads to ease. That's when something is familiar, we don't have to do the guessing of, it's my first time here, what do I do? I don't like this. You can approach it from more of a balanced place. For example, if you did this same class again tomorrow, you'd have a whole different experience. And sometimes it's nice to repeat. I personally love doing the same classes with my teachers. I'll do the same postures, the same set of movements, several different times. Sometimes a few days in a row. Because repetition opens the floodgates for insight. Start your process of releasing out of this one. Eventually we'll come to down dog, and we'll do those 3 down dogs to toe tucked up dogs, and then we'll move into one final hanumanasana on the other side. All right, but first, 3 down dogs to up dogs. Knuckles on the ground the whole time. All right, then go ahead and lunge the left foot forward. Move right into your lunge with a bind. And if the bind is not there today, then just go ahead and kind of reach for the bind. You can also use the block in the same way you might have used it as the previous lunge. This is honestly a really great trick. So I'm bad for not saying it sooner. But you can use that block to prop up your thigh in the same way that you might have in the hanumanasana. In most of these poses, you can use blocks to prop up the legs. And that's kind of a shift I've noticed the more I've studied Katonah yoga, is that blocks are really good bolsters for the legs, not just the arms. All right, and then move into splits. Use the props that are available to you, even if the only prop that you have is a carpet underneath you. Start to release. Return to down dog. And then once you get to down dog, come down to a kneeling position. Sit back onto your shins for a moment. Take a few breaths. Take a sip of water if you like. Let out a little sigh. Shift forward onto your fingertips. Bring the left knee right into the middle of the mat. And then cross the right knee over. Gomukhasana in the legs. And then begin to rise up to stand. Reach your arms overhead. Nice. And then bring your left arm down. And then option to bind in Gomukhasana arms as well. And then you might start drawing some little clockwise circles with the right elbow. Imagine the circles started in the hips and then moved up. And again, the circles don't have to be big at all. They could be small, little controlled circles. Maybe go a few circles the other way. Release the hands, bring the fingertips back down, and then sit back onto your heels. Or not onto your heels, sit back into Gomukhasana. You're going to have to keep trying to sit away from your left foot. Try to sit right in the middle, try to have both your feet nice and wide. You can stay upright or you can fold. Start to lift up and release. We'll just switch legs, so you can unravel, bring the right knee to the center, and then left leg wraps over. Get your feet nice and wide, and then rise up into a kneeling position, arms overhead. And then right arm can drop down. Feel free to go into your Gomukhasana bind with the arms. And then feel free to start drawing some counterclockwise circles with the left elbow on the sky. And then slowly release. Bring the fingertips down. Sit back into Gomukhasana, another pose that might either feel really easy for you or might feel very challenging for you. For me, it's right in the middle. It is challenging for me, but I'm able to find kind of a sense of ease within it. And that ease, once again, just comes from familiarity. Even if something is really hard, once you've done it 100 times or 1,000 times, or one day 10,000 times, it just kind of becomes easeful, even when it's not. You know what I mean? I say you know what I mean as if I can hear your response, but let me know in the comments. Feel free to fold forward. begin to lift up. Crawl forward so that you can unweave your legs with one another. From here, tuck your toes and then sit back to your heels with the toes tucked. And then use your hands to help you lift the knees off the mat, balance in a little toe stand. And then again, use your hands to drop the heels down behind you and find a forward fold. Once again, weight in the toes, bend in the knees, letting the upper body hang. And then keep plugging the butt back behind you. Weight in the toes, butt pulls back. Fingertips reach forward, forward, forward. So find length in the spine. And then crawl the fingertips over toward 2 o'clock to the right. Keep the palms shoulder width away from each other. Keep pulling your left buttock bone back. And then twist your right hand up to the sky. Keep the bend in the knees, that'll help you. And then switch. Start by crawling your fingertips over off the left side of your mat. Keep pulling the right hip bone back. Keep pulling the knees away from each other. And then twist your left hand up to the sky. And then one more time on each side. Left fingertips down. Twist. And then right fingertips down. Twist. Okay, come back into the fold. And then I'm going to turn sideways for this one so you can see me. Okay? You feel free to turn sideways as well if you want. And then grab opposite ankles with your hands. One arm crosses over the other, and then begin to walk the feet out until you kind of naturally hit your wall. And then from here, we'll just kind of begin to rock the hips, shift the weight a little bit left foot to right foot. And then we'll begin to turn both feet to face. Actually, make sure your right arm is braided on top. All right, so if your left arm is braided on top, go ahead and switch. And then we're all going to start to rotate our toes to face toward the left edge of the mat. And then we'll turn into this, what's called a compound bow position. So keep rotating the hips. Left hip pulls back so that the right hip can roll forward. It's like triangle pose a little bit. And then we'll come back to center. So start to close it off. Again, right arm is over left, and then switch so that the left arm is over the right, and then begin to turn the toes over to the right. And open into this almost like triangle pose type formation. Again, you might have to watch on the screen if you've never done this before, because it's kind of weird at first, but then it's really nice. And then close it off through center. Weave the right arm out, braid the right arm over, and then turn the toes toward the left edge of the mat. And then keep turning and opening like triangle pose with a bind. And then close it off. Weave the left arm on top. Turn the toes over to the right. Open. And then you kind of get the flow of it. So then let's just weave back and forth, left to right, forward, back. Feel the hips moving around the container. So as you come back through center, think stick the butt out, stick the butt out, stick the butt out, stick the butt out, and then switch arms. And then the hips roll around. So whenever you kind of go into the full compound bow shape, when you turn the toes and then open, the feet or the hips are kind of like warrior one. So the back hip is always trying to roll forward. And if all you can do today is just find the bind in your forward fold of one arm braiding the other, that's a nice place to be as well. But go ahead and finish this up. So if you're still going, then take just like one more round. And then come through center in your fold and bring the feet back together. And then slowly bring the knees down to the mat. Come into a seated position for a few moments. Take a sip of water if you want, or this is actually a nice time to go ahead and roll the head and neck around a few times. Take an easy stretch, right fingertips out to the right. Left arm swings up and over. Open and close it a few times. Stretch the armpit, stretch the rib cage. And then switch back through center, left fingertips down, right arm goes over. Open and close it a few times. Back through center. Set up for Paschimottanasana, seated forward bend. If you have a block, what you can use that for is a headrest right in between the legs. For Pashi, I recommend keeping the knees bent and really just trying to get on your buttock bones. So for some of us, that might even mean like pulling the kind of butt cheeks out to the side so you can really feel your sitting bones on the ground. Lengthen through your side bodies. Again, bend in the knees so that knees can fit into the armpits. And then maybe you find a headrest for the head. Maybe not, but try not to keep tension in the neck. Try not to hold yourself up. Let yourself fold into yourself. Start to rise up, and we'll move into basically the same pose, just on our backs. So plow pose, but you could also call this like a Supta Paschimottanasana because the arms are going to go overhead as the legs fall overhead as well. All right, so as you do the plow pose, bend into the knees, same thing that we did when we were on our butts, except this time we're just upside down inverted so that the pelvis can be our highest point. Release. Bring your feet down to the ground. Take Supta Baddha Konasana, feet together, open the knees out wide. You can grab your elbows overhead, or if you have blocks, you can also set yourself up for like a reclined fish in the upper body, using one block under the shoulders, one block under the head. And again, no props needed. If you don't have any props, feet together, knees wide. And then, again, maybe you grab your elbows overhead, or maybe you rest your arms somewhere else. And if you have the blocks, you have the option for fish pose. My friends, we are coming to the conclusion of our practice together. If you feel really good in the position that you're in, I invite you to stay for as long as you want or need. If you're feeling complete, you could move into Shavasana on your back. You could sit up into a meditative seat. This is where I will bow to you all and close out the practice. I thank you so much for joining me for today's yoga session, and I hope you got a lot out of it, or I hope you even just got one little nugget or insight or discovery out of it. I hope you have an amazing rest of the day. I can't wait to do it again soon. And make sure to leave a comment, subscribe. We'd love to have you as part of the family if you're not already. And yeah, have a blessed day. Peace.